Hello, and to what may be the first episode, or maybe the only episode, of me talking about Sentai. Now, I don't know if I'm gonna, do more episodes of this, but I kind of wanted to cover it, because after watching through it, I'm sort of baffled, and I just kind of needed to tell someone about it. Okay, I need to give some backstory before, I can explain. So, I'm fascination with, 1980s and earlier Sentai. And the reason is that I view it the same way I would view, 1960s movies, where it's so completely removed from everything that I know. It's from a completely different culture, it's from a completely different time period, it's from a completely different set of mores, that it's fascinating to me. Okay, it is fascinating to me to sort of look at this and try to piece together what everybody was thinking. And that's probably why I love old Sentai, because it's so weird. And just so confusing. I loved watching the old Spider-Man Sentai where he has a giant robot, because somebody was like, okay, yeah, we're gonna make Japanese Spider-Man, and he's gonna have a giant spider robot, and everyone just kind of nodded and went, yeah, that's good. And the reason that I want to start with Zyuranger is because it's so freaking weird. Alright, going beyond, everything that I know about Sentai, it is very strange. And part of what confuses me is just, the cultural backstory and all the information about, where this series comes from. Okay? Because there's so much information, and the more I learn about it, the more fascinated I become about just, the backstory of how we got here. So, to give a little bit of backstory, the series before Zyuranger was intended to be the last one. Okay? We're talking about a series that is 15 years into, its lifespan. Okay, think about how long that is. Think about, how long most television series run. Okay? Super Sentai has had 15 seasons. Alright, 15 different series. And at this point, the people behind it are like, yeah, this is just the end. There's no way we can keep this running. We have kept this running for more than a decade now. And there's just, there's nothing left. There's no way this is going to still be popular, because nothing stays popular for this long. It also, the series before Jetman, pretty low reviews, and had pretty low ratings, and so they're like, yeah, this is just more evidence that, this is over. So, we're just gonna go for broke, and do whatever we want. And they made Jetman, which is a masterpiece series. Okay, it is perhaps the greatest Sentai series ever made, depending on who you talk to. And having watched it, I fully agree. It is a very good series. It is also a very odd series, because it's extremely adult, compared to, everything else. It has topics like murder, and one of the main characters dies. It involves brainwashing and kidnapping. It involves a love triangle and, teenage adult romances. One of the characters smokes and drinks. A character who is evil is turned into a human and sent to a mental asylum. It's just wild. Okay? It is a great series, don't get me wrong. As I said, it's perhaps the masterpiece of Sentai, and it's all made because they went for broke. Much in the same way that, Power Rangers in Space was them going for broke. When they thought the series was going to end, and then they made something amazing. That's Jetman. Except, in the case of Jetman, they're 15 seasons in, as opposed to, 4. And so Jetman's safe franchise. Okay? Jetman was so popular compared to the previous season that essentially they were like, okay, we can keep making stuff. The problem is that they didn't go with the same direction. And this is where things get weird. Because you would think that having made, like, a season that everybody essentially says is the best season you've ever done, that saves your franchise, you would think, okay, let's just do that again. Okay, everybody loved this. Let's just keep doing it. Like, that's what Power Rangers did. They did In Space, and everyone was like, this is great. And so they're like, okay, let's do Lost Galaxy, because that's also space-themed. You know? But no, that's not what the people behind Super Sentai do. They make Jetman, a series that is very adult, that is very popular, that sells tons of merch, because it's focusing on, like, adult topics or more mature topics. And they're like, let's jettison all of this. Let's throw everything that we did that everybody loved into the garbage and just completely retool the series. Which is weird. Okay, you usually don't go, hey, everything was great and people loved this and we made a ton of money. And go, okay, everything that we just did that made this possible, get rid of it. But that's what they do. That's Zyuranger. Okay? That's, like, it's really confusing. It's really baffling. So, a like, short list of weird shit that happens in Zyuranger is, like, now there's a focus on young children, okay? They've completely removed the science fiction elements, and they've added a fantasy element. So this is like the first series that they did that had a fantasy element. This is the first series that uses dinosaurs. Although, despite the fact that they focus on dinosaurs, only 2 of the robots are dinosaurs. So if you've seen Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, you probably noticed this, where, like, there's a T-Rex, and then there's a Triceratops, and then there's, like, 3 others that aren't dinosaurs. Like, saber-toothed tigers are not dinosaurs. Woolly mammoths are not dinosaurs. I guess you can kind of count pterodactyls as dinosaurs. But, like, it's a little weird, because they refer to all of them as dinosaurs. I can kind of overlook that. What I can't overlook is that the series becomes very silly and, as I said, focused on children. And so you end up with plot lines where the main characters are almost not characters. Like, you go from Jetman, where the main characters are very strong and everyone has, like, defined characteristics that carry over from episode to episode. And you go to Zyuranger, where it's like main characters just appear with children that have never been mentioned before and will never be mentioned again. There's a plot line in this where there's a focus on an island of people who were turned into monkeys, and, like, the main prince is, like, 6, and then the princess is a human who is also, like, 6, and the, like, bulk of the episode is about their romance. It's really weird. The other thing is that the villains are almost comical, and they constantly are, like, mustache-twirling evil, and they, like, sing and dance and stuff. But then you contrast this with the Green Ranger saga, and everyone, when they talk about Zyuranger, is like, the Green Ranger saga is great, and it's like, is it? Like, the problem with the Green Ranger saga in this series is that it's so serious. It's a, like, murder revenge plot where the Green Ranger's life force is essentially constantly slipping away, and, like, he's just kind of like, you know, every time he's there, you know his life is slowly disappearing, trickling away. And that is contrasted with Bandora and her minions, who again are, like, singing and dancing. Okay? Like, there's a scene in one of the episodes where they're singing and dancing, and off to the side is the Green Ranger scowling at them. And it just doesn't work. These are like two plots from completely different shows that they've shoved together. It's so weird. Like, weird enough that it's just, there's so much to talk about. This series is so confusing. But what I think is also kind of confusing is that this direction nearly killed the series again. Like, that's what's really confusing. Like, again, Jetman is their answer to, wow, we've been doing this for like 15 years, and there's no way this has like any more juice in it. We're going to make one last series and we're going to go for broke. And then we saved the series and the franchise. And now that we've done that, we're going to take a completely new direction. And this new direction almost kills the franchise again. So to give you some backstory / contrast, in America, nearly kills Power Rangers. Okay? And part of that's because Turbo is based on Car Ranger. Car Ranger is a comedy series. Okay? Car Ranger also saved Super Sentai. And you might be like, well, that's kind of confusing. Why would a comedy series save the franchise again? Why did it need saving again? Because the direction that they begin in Zyuranger, where they focus on weird nonsense and fantasy elements and children, plays out for about 3 years, and it basically kills the franchise. Like, this new direction almost killed the franchise again. To the point where, like, 4 years later, they had to completely retool the series again to avoid, like, cancellation. And I think part of it is that Zyuranger, to begin with, is such, like, a contrasting series. Okay? Because so much of it is stupid. So much of it is just awful. Like, straight up terrible television. And some of it is so batshit, like, so insane, so confusing, that it's almost amazing. Okay, it's not good, but it's just, like, mind-blowing. So much of it is just so, like you're watching it and your mouth is just, like, dropping because there's so much stuff being thrown at you. There's just so much nonsense. And it's, like, okay, it's just, okay, I just have to get into it and explain it. I just have to kind of get into it and just start talking. And if you don't have context for what I've just given you, you'd probably think I was, like, hallucinating. Or I was on, like, hardcore hallucinogens. Because what comes next is so wild. Okay? The first episode, okay, is called Birth. And their title card, which you can probably see on screen right now, is an old man with a giant elf ear thing who looks like he's an engineer. And they've put birth underneath it. This man, by the way, is going to be a major character, and we'll talk about him. But we have to, like, get into the episode first. We begin a book opening, and we see some passable, I guess you could say, models of dinosaurs. One thing that I really love about old Sentai is that because CGI is not a thing yet, everything has to be practical effects for good and for ill. And there's a lot of good effects in this series. But this is not one of them. And the close-up shots of the dinosaurs look, I guess, so fake, but that's, I guess, meant to be intentional. I don't know. And what they say is that more than 170 million years after the time of the dinosaurs, our heroes wake up. And that's going to be a plot point. Don't worry. We then get our theme song. And we get our first appearance of the Zyurangers, which, okay, it occurred to me that the first time we see them, they're on motorcycles. Okay? Motorcycles are, like, a big part of this show for some reason. But what makes it even funnier is that the motorcycles have sidecars, and the Rangers sit in the sidecars while the other one drives them around. It's really comical. But what's more comical is that the theme song is super upbeat, and it's being played over images of the Rangers killing bad guys. Like, Rangers are striking down foot soldiers, and it's this happy, upbeat, like late 80s, early 90s theme song. And it's just amazing. Okay, it's totally out of place. This is not the theme song that I would have put over these scenes. Like, okay, look, there's a lot of ways that you can set things to music, but it's such a weird contrast to see these scenes of explosions and combat played over what is essentially a happy pop song. Okay, just, oh god, it's brilliant. It's stupid, but it's brilliant. I also have to say, it's a really long intro, at least by show standards. Like, it's a minute at least long, and it has multiple stanzas, which is really strange for a television show, I feel like. Most television show themes are very short to get you in. Like, they're like, oh, here's this show, come watch it, and then they cut immediately to the show. Because the longer, like, your intro is, the more show you have to cut, the shorter your actual episode can be. Because these episodes are only like 20 minutes long. And normally, at least with Japanese shows, they usually put the theme song at the end for this very reason. But this song goes on for way too long, it feels like. And I have to say, going forward, I really like old Sentai because every effect has to be practical, which means that the explosions have to be real explosions, and they have to use miniatures and things like that. And it's wonderful. Okay? I really hate modern CGI explosions. Okay? I love old school, practical, like, effects. Even more so because sometimes you watch this show and the feeling I get is that the guys who are on, like, the stage, the guys who are, like, in the field doing the effects are not always prepared for the explosions. And I don't know if that's just, oh, we screwed up the take, or, like, they didn't tell them how big the explosions are in some cases. I don't know. But I'll get into that as it happens. Now, what do you think the first line of this show is? What do you think the first line of the show that would later become Power Rangers is? Because I promise you, it's not what you think. Like, you can probably see it on screen right now. It's really confusing. Literally, the first line in this is, "Let's go to the woods, young lady," sung by an old man who, again, is the old man from the card that you saw before, who looks like an engineer. Like, he's dressed like a train engineer. But apparently, he's just a janitor. Like, he just hangs out outside of this apartment building, sweeping. This is when we finally learn who he is, but for now, we don't know. Smash cut to the front of a business where there are televisions, where a news report is telling us that a space shuttle has launched yesterday, and that it's approaching a planet that has approached the Earth. And we are told that the name of this planet is Nemesis. It only approaches the Earth every 23 million years. Now, you may be asking, how close is Nemesis to the Earth? And the answer is slightly further away than the moon, but close enough to the Earth where it should be causing, like, massive chaos just from its gravitational pull. Because, again, a space shuttle launched, and within one day, they have managed to get to the planet called Nemesis and land upon it. But I think what's best about this is that Weird engineer old man makes the best faces. However, I would like to say that weird engineered old man is the weirdest part of this. He is not. Okay? Because we then smash cut to space, where we see the outside of the space shuttle, and the narrator tells us that there are 2 children on board the space shuttle that is going to this planet. Okay? A planet has approached the Earth. Okay? And they're going to land on it. And the crew for this space shuttle is 2 adult men in their 20s and 2 children. And that's the entire crew for the space shuttle. That is it. That is the only people that they've sent to this planet. Okay? The children, by the way, are a boy and a girl. The boy is like 6 or 7, and I think the girl is like 8 or 9. Okay? Also, space apparently has gravity, because none of them are strapped in, and yet none of them are like weightless. They seem to think that a space shuttle is like an airplane, in that you can just get up and walk around on the space shuttle. Okay? Or that you land a space shuttle on a planet the way you would land a plane, despite not having a runway. Okay? But I have to harp on this because it's important. Okay? They sent a crew in a space shuttle to a planet. They don't even know if the planet has like an atmosphere yet. They don't know if the planet has life on it. They don't know anything about this planet yet. And they sent a space shuttle with 2 astronauts and 2 children. And that's it. That's it. That's the only people they sent. I can't get over this. This is just... Okay, and this is not even the weirdest thing we're going to see in the next minute. Okay? I do wish, however, she'll mention to the fact that the boy is carrying with him a video camera from like 1992, and my first thought was, I'm pretty sure my parents owned that video camera at one point. And again, this is just kind of like culture clash and why I like watching these things, because it's such an old camera, and they brought it with him to space. Like, they put it on the space shuttle, and he's playing with it as they're approaching the planet. But yeah, these are the kids. These are the kids that they decided to bring to the dangerous alien planet. That's part of the space mission. I don't know why. I want to be like a fly on the wall when the people behind the Japanese space program, like, explain why this is the crew. We got 2 adults and 2 children. We're going to send them to this alien planet that we know nothing about. I'm sure that this is horribly wrong. I'm sure, like, everybody will be fine, and they won't die horribly on this alien, barren wasteland of a planet. I do need to point out, though, while they're approaching the planet, they keep zooming in on the kids' faces, and the kids look so bored, because I don't know if they were given direction on, like, how they should act. Like, the camera will pan over and zoom in on the kids' faces, and they're just, like, stone-faced. Then we smash cut again back to Earth, where old man engineer is running up some steps of an apartment building, it looks like. And I can't help but think, like, that they made this guy run up the stairs. Okay, this dude is old, and they're making this dude run up the stairs. Like, I wonder how they needed, where they had to be like, okay, my guy, you need to run up the stairs. We need to get the footage again. Oh no, the footage didn't come out the first time. Do it again. And I must make this reference to the fact that this man looks so confused. Like, I don't know about this actor's history. I don't know what he's done in the past, but this dude is a comedic actor. But this is not meant to be a comedic scene. This is meant to be, like, dramatic. And yet, every time this guy's on screen, every time he's making a face, and I just have to burst out laughing because he has the best facial expressions. So, okay, the old man gets on top of a rooftop of, like, some building, and he puts his hand to his ear and looks confused as he listens in to the words being spoken by the shuttle crew on Nemesis. And we still don't know who this man is. And so we're like, how on earth can he hear something that's going on like a day away by space shuttle? But I have to point out that he looks like a confused old man. And so this is meant to be like, as I said, like filled with anticipation. And yet I look at this and I just start laughing. That gets to our title card, which you've seen, where the big ear comes out and it says birth underneath it. Again, I have no idea why they thought that should be their title card. Smash cut back to the astronauts now walking on the planet, and we get our first sort of establishing shot of where this planet is in relation to Earth. Okay? This planet is so close to Earth. It's slightly further away than the moon, but it's still close to Earth. Like, gloss over this. You can see the moon in the background. Okay? Or, in this case, the foreground. The moon is so close that these two planets should be crashing into each other. Okay? This planet is so close to the Earth that the tides should be changing. Okay? Apparently, this planet has weird, like, distance or something, because everything is very strange. Like, I understand how they're trying to frame the shot, but I can't tell. The depth of field is all weird. What I think is really funny, though, is that they clearly filmed this in, like, a desert or something like it, and, like, the wind is blowing, and the suits that the space guys are wearing just sort of blow around in the wind. I also want to say that these two guys left the kids in the space shuttle, okay? Unattended. Completely unattended, alright? Because they only sent 4 people into space, and 2 of them are children. So it's like, having landed the shuttle on alien planet, the 2 adults are like, okay, we're just gonna go out and explore on our own on this possibly hostile and dangerous planet. You 2 kids are gonna be here alone. And if we die out there, you're just screwed. Like, the kids cannot pilot this space shuttle on their own. So I don't know what the plan is if these 2 scientists met, I don't know, anything that normally happens in, like, any science fiction series. Okay? Imagine if this was, like, I don't know, Dune or something, you know? Or, like, Alien. And you walked on an alien planet and left the kids in the space shuttle. These people would be dead. And that's foreshadowing, by the way. This suddenly, quickly, okay, the 2 astronauts see something red and sparkly in the distance, and they're immediately like, let's go check that out, and they run towards it, and it turns out it's a trash can. It's a giant trash can with a red ruby thing on top of it. Smash cut to an establishing shot of the space shuttle. Inside the space shuttle, we see the kids, and they cut to a single line with the girl going, when are they going to let us outside? I wish to reiterate, they have been on this strange island for like 5 minutes. Not even that. Okay? And they're already like, man, when can we go out there? Again, they don't know if this place has an atmosphere. They don't know if there's dangerous creatures on it. They have no idea what's out there. In fact, their 2 guardians are morons because they immediately see an alien artifact and their first instinct is, let's touch it. We see this thing that looks like a container. Let's open it. Okay? They are too stupid to survive. We then smash cut back to Earth. Old man engineer, with still only 1 big ear, is making a face and going, no, don't open it, as though they could hear his voice on a planet. And again, this is supposed to be like a dramatic scene, I think, but his face, it's just, I can't, every time this man is on screen, I'm happy. Because he's always making the most absurd face. This dude, I hope he was a comedic actor, because he's brilliant. Okay? He's not supposed to be doing, like, a comedic impersonation right now or anything. He's not supposed to be making this funny, but every time they cut to him, I'm just so happy. I should also point out that if it sounds like this is really confusing because they're cutting all over to the place, that's not wrong. One thing that's really weird about this is that the people who edited this are cutting all over the place. We are cutting between 3 different locations every 5 seconds or so. Okay? We have the 2 dudes on the planet, the astronauts. We have the children in the space shuttle, and we have Old Man on the rooftop on Earth. And they're just cutting really quickly between them, like it's a TikTok or a new age YouTube video. Like, they're just cutting between them super quickly. And it gives you almost whiplash between them. Okay, moving on. So obviously, the stupid astronauts open up the giant trash can. They take off the lid, and ghosts suddenly fly out of it. It's essentially Pandora's box. They've opened up the box, and all of the world's evils have sprayed forth, which in this case turns out to be the 4 minions of, like, the evil force this season. And if you've seen Power Rangers, you sort of know them. There's, like, the troll, like, short guy. There's, like, the flying monkey guy. There's, like, a leprechaun. And then there's, like, this ape lion dude, who's all in gold armor. And of them, only the dude in gold looks cool, kinda. Like, he has, like, a nice look. The others are sort of stupid, and I think they're meant to be. But then we get our first image of Pandora the Witch. And this is where I go, if you are sitting down and thinking to yourself, man, I can't write, I can't be creative enough, I wish to point out that these people sat down and said, okay, we're going to have a container with our evil in it, and when they open the container, all of the evil's going to come out, just like Pandora's box. What should we name the evil witch that's inside of it? Oh, I don't know. How about Pandora? Okay. Pandora, as opposed to Pandora. That's the level of creativity they had when naming this. I have to say, Rita Repulsa is a much better name than Pandora. But we're going to find out that this is, how do I put this? Not really meant to be frightening, although the tone is all over the place in this episode, as we'll get into. But I wish to point out that this is our first image of Pandora the Witch as she wakes up from being asleep. And upon waking up, she does is ask how long they've been asleep. This introduces us to the shtick of the 2, like, comic relief side characters. I should put comic relief in quotes because they're not ever, like, funny. Basically, they start bickering and fighting amongst themselves over the calculator. Now, I don't know how a calculator is going to calculate how long they've been asleep, unless they just intrinsically know what year it is. But that's the least weird thing about this. I also wish to point out that they then cut to a close-up shot of the leprechaun guy face-palming and going, you guys do nothing but fight each other. Okay. Calling out the fact that they're doing something does not make it any better. This feels like the script writers were like, these guys need to be comedic, and somebody who was writing the dialogue was like, no, we need to point out that they're not funny. Like, we need to point this out for the audience, because the audience is brain dead. However, they then calculate to the second how long they've been asleep, and Pandora is super pissed about how long it's been. And so she casts Magic Missile on the container and blows it up. And I do mean magic missile. They look like magic missiles, so I'm just going to call it that. Although the effect of the magic missiles varies wildly depending on the scene, and we'll get to that. We then cut to 2 astronauts who apparently are no longer running away. Apparently at some point they just collapsed on the ground and just sat there staring at these assumedly aliens, that appeared, and they start groveling. They're like, "Oh no, don't hurt us!" Bandora turns to them and says, "I'm gonna thank you for releasing me," and she opens her mouth, and a tornado of sorts blows forth, and the two scientists are blown into space, where they scream in terror as they flail their arms, as they leave the atmosphere and plummet towards the moon. So they're just dead. Yes, they just, like, scream as they flail into space. Just gone, I guess. And, of course, this leaves the two children alone in a space shuttle on this alien planet. Bandora then turns and looks at the Earth and goes, "Next, you." Cut to Earth. And a skyscraper literally pulls itself out of the ground and starts moving down the street. And the way that they've shot this miniature, it makes it look like the building is chasing people. And it's not meant to be funny, but the way that they've shot this and people running away from the building as it follows them, it makes it look like they're being chased down by a skyscraper, and it's unintentionally hilarious. We then get some good shots of miniatures moving around and foam debris falling on extras, and I genuinely like this, okay? I love old school practical effects, okay? No CGI, no, like, gimmicks. They're just moving miniatures around with, like, fireworks, and they're dropping foam that looks like debris onto people, and it's just great. It looks better than most CGI does, okay? Because you can tell that there's weight to things, and the things are actually there, and it's just so good. It's so nice to see it. However, we have to talk about the fact that I think this series was made for people without object permanence, or maybe the blind, I don't know, because the buildings all sort of start to come together and get crushed together as like one building, forming like a giant mountain of skyscrapers almost. And the center one lifts out of the ground and flies into the sky. And that would be fine on its own. But then there's a shot of a helicopter with a reporter. And the reporter goes, "I can't believe what I'm seeing. The skyscraper is flying away," as though we, the audience, are blind. Now, I know that, like, he's reporting to people who can't see him. Okay? He's reporting to people who can't see what's happening. I know that. But in the context of, like, watching the show, they're narrating what we can see. Okay? And it's really weird. The skyscraper doesn't leave for very long. Like, as soon as it goes up into the air, it immediately comes back down, and there's a pretty good practical explosion. And what we see is that on top of the skyscraper is now a palace, or what looks like a castle, basically. And I think what they're going for is like Wizard of Oz, like the Crystal Palace or whatever, or the Emerald City kind of shit, because, like, you know, you have the flying monkey motif and everything else, and, like, I think that's what they're going for. I think what they're going for is, like, a motif for Wizard of Oz, as I said, but it's ruined because on the front of the castle is a neon sign that lights up that says Bandera Palace. And there's no space between Bandera and Palace, so it's one word. And it makes it look like a casino. Like, it looks like a casino that you would see in Vegas. Welcome to Bandera Palace, where you can play blackjack as much as you want. That's what this looks like. Okay? Our health order guy flies by and says, "I can see something on top of the skyscraper." And this is a quote. He says, "Some sort of dystopian take on Gaudi's Sagrada Familia Cathedral." End quote. Okay, so I imagine that most people who are listening to this have no idea what the Sagrada Familia Cathedral looks like, or what even it is. It's a cathedral in Barcelona. It's a very famous cathedral, and it's got all these weird sort of like towers on it with weird baubles on top, basically. And I had to look that up using the internet. Okay? How many children in 1992, before the internet, mind you, knew offhand what the Sagrada Familia Cathedral looked like? Okay? Again, this is a show that's marketed to, like, I don't know, 7 to, like, 10 or 11-year-olds. How many of those, before the internet, just offhandedly, in Japan, knew what the Sagrada Familia Cathedral looks like in, you know, in Spain? It's such a weird, like, reference. Such a weird term. It's such a weird description. Like, you could have just said, it looks like some kind of dystopian castle. You could have said anything. It doesn't even really look like Sagrada Familia either. It looks almost like a Tesla coil. It's got like this center and this bauble on top that spins. And I guess on the backside it has like spikes, but it really doesn't look like a cathedral. It looks like a weirdo Tesla coil casino, which is honestly pretty good. It's still a clear like model, but it's not a bad model. It's just a weird reference. An image of Bandora flying through the air, although it's clearly green screen. Green screen. It's almost like Cuphead green screen, like that, like where the background moves independently of the figures on the foreground. And Bandora starts flying around, and she's laughing. But her way of flying through the air is to ride like a 1910s bicycle, where the front wheel is super big and the back wheel is super small, and she's just like pedaling this thing flying through the air. She then begins to call out to all the humans, but she's doing it like 3 feet away from an open window of an apartment building. So like, imagine if you opened your window and Bandora the Witch is sitting there on a bicycle yelling at you about the human race. And this is where she outlines her motivations and her plans. Where she goes, humans are garbage. And I mean, fair. But her reasons for saying that they're garbage don't make a whole lot of sense. Where she's like, barren wastelands are so perfect in their simplicity, and I'm going to kill your world and destroy it. And the reason I'm going to do that is humans are sad because they spend all of their time on love, hating each other, slaughtering each other, and running their own path to ruin. She then punctuates this by casting Magic Missile and blowing up a skyscraper. Like, straight up, it's got a miniature, and they put, like, explosives in it, and it just blows up, and it's brilliant. It's a great effect. But harp on this for a moment, because Bandora, like, her reasons don't make a lot of sense. Like, one of those things is not like the other. Okay? She's mad that humans love each other, but she's also mad that they hate each other and kill each other. Meanwhile, her plan is that because she hates the Earth, she's going to destroy it. Which means, is she just considered to not be human? Is because she's a witch, does that mean that she's, like, not human, and thus she doesn't know how to love or hate? And that doesn't fit with what we learn later in the series, but it's just so, like, the love thing doesn't fit with the rest of it. You could definitely make a villain that's like, humans are, like, clearly going to destroy themselves. They're so filled with conflict and hatred that they're going to ruin the world, and I'm just going to speed it up. Like, I'm not doing anything that you guys would have done on your own. Like, you could write a villain like that, but that's not the villain they're writing. So her speech about wanting to destroy the world makes no sense. Smash cut to engineer old man making a face on top of a building. So Bandora is there, and she's looking at him, and she says, "Oh, what a great reunion! Aren't you white magician Barza?" What I don't know what that means, but apparently this man is actually the white magician Barza. And then something wonderful happens. Okay, so to transform into his, like, clothes, I guess, and have his staff in weird, like, I don't know, headband thing, he does, like, a 1970s Wonder Woman spin. Like, you know how, in, like, the original television show for Wonder Woman, she would, like, cross her arms and spin around really quickly, and, like, there would be a tornado, and she would switch into her Wonder Woman outfit? The old man does, like, an old man version of that, where he, like, slowly shuffles around in a circle one time, and his clothes just change. And all I can think of is, like, old man, like, Wonder Man, like, turn around and, like, transform. But the problem is that he's still comedic face old man, and so this is meant to be, like, a showdown between, like, these two forces that fought each other long ago. But one of them is between Bandora, who is sitting on a weird 1910s bicycle, and hilarious old man Barza, who looks confused in every scene he's in. Then Barza attempts to fight Bandora, and by which I mean he hits his staff on the ground and tries to thrust it at her like he's gonna cast a spell, but nothing happens. And Bandora goes, "Oh, you must have gotten forgetful in your old age, because you lost all your magic when I beat you, like, forever ago." So apparently, confused old man wizard is not inaccurate. Apparently he's so old now that he's, like, forgotten that he doesn't have magic, except he transformed into his clothing, so that was clearly magic, so apparently he has some magic, but apparently he just doesn't have any offensive magic that he can fight the witch with. Bandora, though her superiority, points her staff at a piece of garden hose that just is cut and coiled for some reason, and it springs forth and wraps itself around the old man and turns into a snake. Except it's not a real snake, it's like a really bad plastic snake. Like, it's a toy, but it's so funny because the old man acts like he's suddenly been, like, defeated by this plastic snake. And after showing us the plastic snake, cuts to a close-up shot of a real snake that doesn't look anything like the plastic snake. It has completely different colors, it has completely different, like, patterns on it. They just couldn't find a snake that looked like a real snake, or they couldn't find a real snake that looked like their fake snake, so they just put them together and assumed nobody would notice. The old man, another face, and he pulls his arms out, and the snake, like, breaks into multiple pieces and turns back into a garden hose. At which point, Dora says, "I guess you do remember a spell or two." Despite the fact that he has not cast a spell, and he didn't cast a spell to defeat the snake. He just sort of moved his arms, and it broke. And, like, he didn't, like, make a spell. There wasn't any effect. It just fell off of him and broke into pieces. Old man begins bantering with Bandora, and he says that modern Earth is a wellspring of hope and love. To give you some cultural context, or some time period context, this was made in 1992. Okay? 1992, I'm not sure I would describe as a place of hope and love. I mean, yeah, the Soviet Union fell, but we're talking like Gulf War era. Okay? Also, 1992 Japan is, I think, post-money era of the 1980s. I'm not 100% sure on that. But the 1980s in Japan, the boom period, I'm not sure I would describe as an era of hope and love. And I sure wouldn't describe the 90s downturn period after, like, everything went bust as a period of hope and love. Okay? So it's really kind of funny that he's like, yeah, modern Earth, 1992. You know, place of hope and love. That's what everyone, is all about. Keep in mind, 1992 in America anyway is like the era of grunge rock. Okay, this is when like you have Nirvana playing like Smells Like Teen Spirit. This is when gangster rap in America comes into the fore. Okay, like this is like the last year of Bush 1. Okay, after all the years of Reagan, this is and like the AIDS crisis. Not sure modern Earth in 1992 is a place of hope and love, but aspirational. But I'm gonna chalk this up to like delusional old man because he's been delusional about literally everything else so far. So there's some more banter, and there goes, "You're an idiot," and I'm gonna start with those two kids on the space shuttle. And we see Laura has shrunken the space shuttle to like a toy size and now put it in her lair as like a trophy. And my first thought was, thank you for reminding me about how these people were found on an alien planet, because those two space guys who were thrown into space are just totally dead. Like, they have to be. We have not heard about them and nobody has mentioned them, so they're probably dead. But going back to the children moment, the children are like, "Oh no, what are you going to do to us?" And her minions have rigged up a Rube Goldberg machine-like thing, okay? Where they have placed the space shuttle underneath, like, a giant metal ball that's hanging on a string. And the string is rigged up to a pulley. And on the part that's attached, there's a giant magnifying glass that is pointed at the string. So they've set up this trap where essentially the sun is going to shine through the magnifying glass to burn the string to drop the metal ball on top of the children and kill them. Ben then shows the old man a close-up shot of the children screaming in terror, and she's like, "You remember how I loathe children, don't you?" And I found this kind of funny because it's clear that the old man is like old and confused and senile at this point. He couldn't even remember that he doesn't have magical powers. So I'm not sure why he would remember something like this. Maybe he does. I don't know. But it makes me wish that we got a much better Zyuranger than what we will get, because the idea that she loathes children and wants to go out of her way to harm them makes me happy just knowing how the rest of this series goes and how much focus there is on stupid children. Like, there's way too much focus on stupid children in this series. And, like, just knowing that I'm gonna, like, come around to agreeing with, like, yeah, I also hate children, especially the ones that they put in this series. I wish she wasn't such a comedy character, because, like, I would totally get behind her, like, just based on what I know about this series. Now, what really makes Bandora great, it's not, like, just a psychopath who wants to kill children. She's Batman villain level of psychopath, because it's not enough to just kill them. No. She has rigged up the trap so that it will take an hour, and then after that hour has passed, the rope will snap and they will die. Okay, she's done the equivalent of being like, "You won't get me this time, Batman. I've set my bombs for an hour. You'll never stop me." And I actually kind of like this, because unlike most Batman villains who are motivated primarily by like trying to get one over on Batman, Bandora is not. Bandora is gleefully evil and enjoys watching people scramble around trying to stop her. And so setting like this trap that takes an hour makes sense, because she wants to watch Old Man Wizard fail. Or she wants to at least watch him, like, scramble around, because she's like, "Well, if you want to stop me and save the kids, you're gonna have to get moving." And she just laughs maniacally, and she's clearly having the time of her life. Laura then sends another magic missile, but this time it's very small, just to like freak out Old Man. And Old Man goes, I have to stop you, but luckily I have one more card up my sleeve. Smash cut to him entering an elevator. Okay, so he's been walking around in full wizard garb, like through an office building or something, and he enters an elevator, and he presses some of the buttons in a certain order before pressing what appears to be a special button, and he takes an elevator to what appears to be a, like, Greek temple. I also that they show the elevator, and the elevator goes down to floor 2000. Okay? So apparently, this elevator, they couldn't just make it go to floor 2000. They had to put the number on top to tell you that it goes down to floor 2000, which makes me wonder, like, what the people who were installing this elevator thought. Or maybe crazy Old Man installed it himself, because, again, he doesn't have magic. So he must have, like, installed this elevator to floor 2000, like, excavated it, and built it himself at some point, so that he could get down to the Greek temple island that is contained under this building. Now, within within this temple, under the city, I guess, are statues to various dinosaurs. And Nutjob Old Man stands in the middle of the temple with a fire burning, and he raises his arms and he goes, Guardian Beasts, you need to wake up. It's time to wake up the 5 warriors of righteousness. And other nonsense. But the thing I want to focus on here is they show a bunch of statues, like sculptures, of the different dinosaurs / animals, and they look way better than the intro, like, puppets that they used. Okay? These sculptures actually look kind of cool, and the lighting is done in such a way that it makes them look, like, dramatic and intimidating almost. And this is super good. Like, this I like. I wish they had used these shots instead of the shots of the puppets in the intro. Old Man then runs into a room, and in the room are a bunch of slabs, and on the slabs are, like, heads mounted of dinosaurs. Okay, so it almost looks like a trophy, like the head of a saber-toothed tiger made out of plaster, but it has, like, a thing around it which makes, again, look like somebody mounted the head of a plaster, like, saber-toothed tiger on the wall, or a saber mastodon on a wall. And then moves a keyhole, like a regular keyhole, and inserts a key and turns the key. This opens the door, but it doesn't open the door to, like, a tomb. It opens the door to, like, a purple dimension? Like, there's a purple dimension, and then there's, like, a flat plane spinning around in space. It almost kind of looks like what happens when somebody in the Superman mythos gets sent to the Phantom Zone, where, like, they're trapped in a pane of glass. Like, the glass is spinning around in the air in this purple dimension. And crazy Old Man goes, "Wake up, Black Warrior! It's time for battle! Wake up!" Like he's trying to shake the man awake from taking a nap. Like, do this now. It looks even weirder because, like, when they finally show what he looks like, what the guy inside of this weird pane of glass inside the purple dimension looks like, it's not straight, so it's not like it's a door or, like, a casket or something. He is slightly off center, and the glass mirror is slightly warped, so it gives this weird perspective shot where he's, like, in an alternate dimension or something. It's really weird. Anyway, opens his eyes, and we get the requisite close-up shot of his eyes opening, and then he teleports out of the glass pane into the purple dimension and walks out. We then get shots of the old man opening up all of the other dimension doors. But obviously, all of the other dimensions are color-coded. So, like, he opens up the saber-toothed tiger dimension, and it's yellow. But the old man greets all of them differently, which I think is meant to establish kind of, like, characters for them. Because, like, when he opened up the purple dimension, he was like, the battle is here, you have to get up. But when he opens up the yellow dimension, he's like, don't sleep all day. Like, he acts like the yellow guy is just lazy. He's like, don't sleep all day, boy. You gotta get up and fight. Like, this guy has been essentially for, like, 17 million years. Or something. He's been, 170 million years. He has been, like, in torpor for so long, and the first words spoken to him in 170 million years are old man going, don't sleep all day. First words he says to him in 170 million years. And this is where I get that crazy old man doesn't like our heroes, or at the very least, doesn't like most of our heroes, because he opens up the pink dimension with the only female member of the team, and his first words to her in 170 million years are, no time to pretty up first. Okay, 1, sexist. 2, you just woke her up in the first time in 170 million years. She has no idea what's going on. Okay, she's been in torpor in a weird glass rectangle for millions of years, and the first words out of your mouth are, no time to pretty up. So, I guess crazy old man is just really sexist. He then, the blue dimension, like, get out of bed already! First of all, they're not in bed. And second, again, 170 million years of being asleep, and the first words you say to him are, get out of bed already. Like he's overslept. This is what I mean when I think the old man just hates our heroes, or at the very least hates all of them except for the Black Ranger, because his words to all of them are basically for him to be mad at them, that they weren't woken up when the one who was supposed to wake them up is him. Point, that all of our heroes walk out of their weird chambers, and they pose to the camera, look directly at the camera, and say their names and where they're from. Okay, and this is where we get some weirdness, because they introduced themselves as knights of kingdoms that they made up. So, like, the yellow guy says, I'm the Knight of Dame. Boy. His name is Boy. B-O-I. Insert Kratos joke here, obviously, but like, this is what confuses me, is that we have no context for any of this. We have no context for their kingdoms, because we don't even know that the kingdoms exist. He just says, I'm Knight of Dame. What on earth is Dame? What is this? Who are you? Why are you posing and looking at the camera? Explain, show. Explain. I also found that at this point, we are now halfway through this show. We are 10 minutes in of a 20-minute show. Okay? We are only halfway through. All of the weirdness, all of the nonsense that I've described to you, we are 50% of the way through this show. Can you see how bizarre this show is, and how absolutely baffling everything is, and how much nonsense is just thrown at you, like, without any context? There is no lead up, there is no establishing, there is just constant stuff being thrown at you that you just have to accept. There is I need to point out here, and that is that all 4 of the Rangers that we meet are revealed, and they pose, and they say their names and identifications. And having done this, we then cut to Old Man, who says, wonderful, now for the last one. So he singled out the Red Ranger, and I know the Red Ranger is always meant to be like the lead, and the lead always gets the most character development, but when you establish a show, you probably shouldn't, like, establish it by going, hey, these are the 4 minor characters, and then this guy. Let's single out the lead and make it clear that he is the superior one. Okay, that's probably not a great thing. I do kind of love that the T-Rex head that's on the wall behind them looks the worst out of all of the other ones. Like, all the other ones are straight on, and so they look pretty cool, because, like, the Triceratops or the Mastodon heads are from the front. But the T-Rex is from, like, the side, like it's a candid shot, and the candid shot makes it look like the T-Rex was not aware that the photo was being taken. I then need two things. That the keys to these doors are color-coded, and two, when the old man puts the red key into the door, the key breaks, and they're like, so what's wrong? And he's like, the key broke! Like, he's sitting there like a confused old man, like, with this broken key. Like, oh no, what are we gonna do? The Red Ranger can't come out of fucking torpor. At which point, the Black Ranger are like, well, we better get the door open. And they charge it and try to force the door open, which obviously isn't gonna work. But the old man then runs to the comically large hourglass and goes, no, we don't have time. Because apparently, the old man has timed exactly with an hourglass at some point that we didn't see. How long they have before the children are going to die. And so, Wizard Old Man is like, you guys go ahead and go save the children. I'm gonna try to figure out how to open the door. Now, no crazy old man, but sure that I would trust him to manage anything. Okay? I don't know if he could figure out how to work a toaster. I don't know if I really want to, like, put him in charge of trying to figure out how to open a magic door to a red dimension where our hero is contained within, like, a weird monolith. To the children in Bandora's lair, and this is the only time I think I'm not gonna care that we have to cut back to the children, because we get a wonderful scene with Bandora where she crouches down to look into the tiny space shuttle and is like, oh no, you're all gonna die. Let me see you cry. Let me see those tears. She's so giddy, and it's so wonderful. Okay, I totally understand why they wanted her to be Rita Repulsa. I almost wish that they kind of merged Rita Repulsa with Bandora into, like, one character, because there's aspects of both of them I really like, and there's aspects of both of them that I really hate. But this part of Bandora, where she's, like, clearly so happy to watch other people suffer, is just, oh, it's perfect. I love this. Like, literally states that I love watching children cry. Okay? It's so wonderful. It's almost like, the thing that reminds me of is, like, Crush Doink from, like, the weird WWE era, like the new generation, where they're like, you like making children cry, to like villain Doink. That's what I think of, and it's just as good. But because we live in a fallen, terrible world, because we live in a world where nothing good can last, we then see comedy sidekicks who says that there's a strange parade towards them. Cut to our heroes riding motorcycles. Not just any motorcycles. Motorcycles that are themed around the Triceratops and the Mastodon. Okay? But there's only 2 motorcycles. Okay? They couldn't afford, or maybe they just didn't want to design more than 2 motorcycles. So we only get a blue and a black one. And that means that the Pink Ranger and the Yellow Ranger have to ride in the sidecars. And it's wonderfully silly and stupid. But I just want to point out again that this is a fantasy series where the first time we see our leads do anything, they are riding motorcycles. No question about modern society. No questions about how a motorcycle works. They just have the motorcycles and are using them. Now I want to ask a question, and that is, did the motorcycles exist in the past? Because when we actually see the past later on, we learn that the past is like a medieval style world, and obviously modern world doesn't look like that. We're not dealing with like, oh, it was a mystical anciently advanced civilization. It wasn't like, oh, like in the past they were super advanced, then the cataclysm happened and everything went to crap. No, it's like they lived in a medieval world of kingdoms and things, and now they're 170 million years in the future, and not only are there all these buildings which look completely different, they apparently know what motorcycles are and how to ride them. Okay? They are taking all of this in stride. It's been like, they've been awake for like 5 minutes, and crazy old man is like, hey, get on these motorcycles and go fight the witch. I also want to point out, I don't know where these motorcycles came from. Did the old man make them? Like, when did did he also make the motorcycles when he made the elevator? Is he a mechanic? Did he build these themed motorcycles around their dinosaurs? Because, like, they can't have been built a long time in the past, which means I don't know that I would trust him to have made these things. Again, I wouldn't trust him to, like, use a toaster on his own. I'm not sure I would trust him to build a motorcycle from scratch. Or maybe he just bought them, I don't know. But I don't know that I would sell a motorcycle to a crazy old man who is like, I need a dinosaur-themed motorcycle with, like, an engine on the back. Like a jet engine and stuff. And as we'll see, these things do other things. So, like, again, did he build them? Were they his idea? Did they build them in the far distant medieval past? And they just kind of kept them running for 170 million years? Nothing is explained. It's just there. Luckily, things are good occasionally. We get another shot of Bandora. And Bandora, looking out and seeing these rangers, is not unhappy. In fact, she's giddy. She's thrilled. She's like, they must have, like, sealed them away because they knew I would be back. Wonderful! I get to fight and make them sad. This is brilliant. Like, she's so happy that her nemesises still exist. Like, she's so thrilled that they're coming to stop her. Like, this is what I mean. She's like a Batman villain, and it's wonderful. A commercial break. And then suddenly our heroes have climbed the tower of skyscrapers to get to Bandora's front door. And our heroes are morons, essentially. They just, like, kick open the front door and run in. Now, I say that they're morons because when they kick in the front door, they are greeted with a beach. With the ocean. Now, again, they are trying to enter a castle, and the first thing they see upon opening the door is a beach with sand and the ocean. So it's clear that one of two things is true. A, this is a trap, and they're idiots for going into it. Or B, the door is a portal to a different place, and they could be going hundreds of miles away. Okay? She could have opened the door to, like, I don't know, someplace on a beach across the world away. Okay? They could be on the opposite side of the planet, for all they know. But they just kick open the door, and they see this, and they just run in, like, heedless of danger. And I think this is meant to be, like, them being, like, courageous, but all I see is, you guys are idiots. So, our heroes are now at the ocean, and the door disappears behind them, and they don't seem to notice. And my first thought upon seeing this was, oh, this is where they shot the space scenes from earlier. This is where they shot the Nemesis planet thing, which at the moment has not been mentioned at all. Okay, I want to point out that, again, we're only like 12 minutes into this episode, and we've gone from aliens, essentially, on another planet that only approaches Earth every, like, 23 million years, to people in, like, some other dimension where they don't age, being sealed away for millions of years, a witch that's in a trash can, her kidnapping children, an old man having to, like, build motorcycles. Like, there's so much going on. And now we're on a beach, and all of the previous plot points are just kind of ignored or forgotten about. Shit just happens in this episode, or in this series, okay? But anyway, now we can see our heroes looking delightfully out of place in the ocean / the beach. And then we're introduced to our foot soldiers. And, okay. So, for those of you who are familiar with Power Rangers, you're probably familiar with the putties, okay? But the way that they're introduced here is with finger puppets. Like, they do a close-up shot of the sand, and a hand comes out, but the 3 fingers in the center have a head shoved over them, and the pinky and the thumb are acting like arms. And so you have these like finger puppets, like hand puppets, that are like have popped out of the sand and are wiggling around, but they haven't moved the head so far down that you can't see the creases where fingers split off. So you can still see the lines where like the in between the fingers space. Like now I'm to like have so many slides, but every like 10 seconds something insane happens, okay? Something completely like nonsensical occurs. Like you can clearly see that these are hand puppets, but they're having these hand puppets like dance around, so the putties that look like this are like moving around and dancing among each other and holding hands, and it's absurd is the way to put it. And our heroes look at these and go, oh, little clay dolls, because the dolls are moving all over the place. And they crouch down to look closer at them. And then suddenly the clay dolls get bigger and they punch our heroes in the face. Like, no joke. They like develop Hulk hands and the arms stretch out and punch all of our heroes in the face. And then okay, you can see it, okay? I'm just trying to describe what's happening, because the background becomes trippy and space-like, and then a television rises out of the ocean with Pandora on it, and she sticks her giant staff out of the television and blows up our heroes. That's just what happens. Now, there's some wonderful practical explosions here, and they're great. And I love them. I love practical explosions, but I can't help but notice that this is a lot of weird stuff being thrown at us immediately. Okay, so Pandora is not done yet, because she sticks her hand out of the television and lightning flies from it, which again blows up our heroes. The screen breaks, and we cut back to Old Man. Has either acquired or built an old-timey, like, 1700s cannon. And he has fired it at the door that contains our last hero. So either Old Man just had a cannon off of like a ship from the 1700s, like it's a pirate cannon. Like either he had that lying around somewhere for some reason, or he has constructed this while our other heroes are out being idiots. And his first thought was, okay, I just need to blow open the door with a cannonball, except it's tiny. It's not like a full-size cannon. It's a miniature cannon. So the cannonball can be no greater than, like, I don't know, it looks like the size of a clementine because it's not a big, like, cannon. If it was bigger, a full-size cannonball might be good, but it's a tiny cannon. And so it's like, where did you get this? Did you build this? Did you cast a cannon on your own, Old Man? Like, I want to know. I want to know who thought of this. I know it's meant to be comedic, and it is, but I really want to know where this came from. Who did this? Who decided, like, where did he get this? Did he build it? I want to imagine that he built it. I want to imagine that Old Man has built this, or maybe even better, he just had this lying around. Like, Old Man was like, when my heroes wake up one day, when Bandora returns, they're gonna need weapons. What do I need for a weapon? And he, like, forged a cannon, but it's a mini cannon. And it's just been sitting around gathering dust all this time, and so now he has a use for it. Anyway, the cannon fails, obviously, and Old Man gives into despair. He sits down and goes, "It's no use. I can't open it anymore." And then we hard cut to our other heroes in a hell dimension. Again, really sorry that I have to keep adding more slides, but every, 10 seconds, something insane happens, and you would not believe me or fully understand how utterly bizarre this is if I didn't show you. Okay, we have our heroes who are in some kind of hellish dimension where the sky is yellow and there are, buildings in the background. I assume this is supposed to be, Bandora's, palace or something at one part of it, because I guess the beach was an illusion or not real. And then, they are now all trapped inside of a cage and shoved together, which means that our heroes are all morons. Because ostensibly, our heroes have defeated Bandora before. That's why they were asleep. The implication is, in the far distant past, these were the heroes that defeated the great evil. And now that they've been woken up, essentially what for them was an eye blink. They essentially closed their eyes and were put to sleep and then woke up a second later. Unless, of course, they've been aware for 170, million years. I assume they weren't, because Bandora wasn't aware. She said she was asleep and that they were unaware of how long they were asleep for. So I can only assume that for the heroes, it was the same. So that means they went from defeating the great evil to being this clueless and stupid. Okay? These are the heroes that defeated Bandora in the past. Somehow. Despite the fact that they apparently have zero common sense. Or any sense of, how to deal with problems on their own. Because our introduction to them has been them getting their ass kicked. Over and over again. But it's not enough contained in the cage. Okay? The cage is then electrified. And then there's a ring of fire around the cage that springs up and shoots flames out. And in this situation, our Black Ranger with the axe sticks his arm out, through the bars. And I'm like, dude, you're gonna lose that arm with how, this is all set up. Okay. Then what happens is our heroes immediately panic. They immediately lose all manner of, cohesion, and they just start panicking. And the Black Ranger is like, hey, Pink Ranger, shoot an arrow at them and free us. And so she shoots an arrow at them, but she misses, and somehow she misses so poorly that the arrow deflects off them and it hits the string that is containing, or that is holding up the metal ball that is going to crush the children. So, in effect, she has failed so poorly, or failed so badly, I should say, that she has made the situation worse. That's the level of competence that our heroes are at. The bad guys, of course, are gleefully thrilled that our heroes are idiots, and so they begin to spin the cage around, essentially because, and they just start, essentially taunting the heroes that are trapped. Our heroes then give up. They've tried nothing, and they're all out of ideas. And so they just immediately give up, and they're like, we're trapped and useless. We're all doomed. And then we cut back to Old Man. Old Man has completely given up. Okay? Old Man has basically decided that the world is doomed. Bandora has won. We are at 13 minutes into episode 1. Okay? We are not even 75% of the way through the first episode. This is the introduction to our heroes. And not only have 4 of our main heroes instantly been captured and rendered useless. But our mentor figure has immediately given up all hope and has basically been like, well, the Earth is doomed. Just immediately given up hope. At this point, Deus Ex Machina appears because the T-Rex statue's eye glows red and it shoots a laser beam at the door, which opens the door and causes the Red Ranger to appear. And the old man reacts to this the same way that he reacted to Bandora appearing. Okay, he makes the same horrified face that the Red Ranger has appeared before him. The thing that he wanted to happen. He's not, like, super elated. He is horrified. Like, I guess he's just horrified that a laser appeared and that the world isn't doomed or something. I don't know. Every time he tries to be dramatic, I just start laughing because he's giving the wrong reaction to everything. Our Red somehow jumps from the underground temple dimension instantly into Bandora's prison hell dimension. Like, I don't mean, like, oh, he walked through a room. No, he jumps. Like, he's standing in the doorway of the red dimension thing, and he looks serious, and he jumps forward the same way you would jump forward, like, a foot, and then he is instantly in Bandora's palace, and he cuts the cage chain. So, cutting the chain stops the, like, flames somehow. I'm not sure how. Because apparently this whole trap was only rigged up with one chain. That's the least weird thing. Because the bad guys look at him and go, "Who are you? Tell us who you are." Now keep in mind, the last thing that these guys were doing was fighting this very man. Okay? They fought and lost against this guy. This is the guy who defeated them all those years ago, which for all of these people who are involved was essentially like 20 minutes ago. Alright? And they're like, "Who are you?" And I guess that's because we haven't introduced our Red Ranger, but it's very stupid. Like, they should know who he is. Anyway, this is Geki. As you can probably imagine, is going to be our main character and the one who gets the most character because, like, he's the one who gets to be heroic and save all of his useless friends. He also has a sword, so that helps. So he immediately, like, turns around and cuts the simple padlock that kept the cage closed. Meaning that if they had spent, I don't know, 10 seconds looking at how they were, like, trapped in the cage, they could have just broken the padlock or, like, escaped that way. Like, they weren't really trapped. The only reason they were trapped is because they're all useless. Then we get the first real fight scene, okay, unmorphed, which is fine, because they all use their weapons. And I want to point out that as they're fighting the putties, Pink Ranger is brutal as hell because she's shooting arrows, and one of them is shot in the chest, and he holds it to his heart like he is dead. And the other one has been shot in the eye, and he the putty grabs the arrow that has been shoved into his eye, and he falls over in agony. Okay? Like, they're made of clay, and they're reacting to these arrows like they're dying and bleeding everywhere. But them all fighting means that I don't have to talk about very much because there's not much going on. They're just fighting. The only thing I can comment on, really, is that the fighting is fine, but they turned the smoke machine up too much, so there's this smoke everywhere, and it's almost hard to see them because the smoke is thick enough that it's, like, up to their waist. Like, I don't know if they shot this multiple times. I don't know if whoever was in charge of running the smoke machine just turned it up too much, but, like, there's way too much smoke. Cut to old man outside on top of a building again. Somehow, old man has gone from the 2,000 floors beneath the earth temple with all the dinosaurs to the top of a building again. And he says, "Get out here and transform," as though they needed to be told that they can transform. And I know it's like the first time, but they should have already known to do this, because again, we're running with the idea that these are heroes. of the past. That these are, like, people who have done all this stuff before. Okay? That these are professionals, and yet they don't act like it. I also want to point out that they're still, like, shoving down our throats that the Red Ranger is superior to all the others. Because while the others are fighting the putties, Red Ranger is fighting Gryffindor, which is Goldar in the Sentai. So he's fighting, like, the guy who's clearly a monster, one-on-one, while everyone else is fighting the foot soldiers. So it just makes him out to be, like, head and shoulders above everyone. And they just keep shoving this in our faces. Okay, so Old Man is like, come out here. I've got your medals. And for those of you who are familiar with, like, Power Rangers, like, the coins, like, the little golden circles, with the different dinosaurs on them, like, that's what he's got in his hand. Why he didn't give them those to begin with, I don't know. Okay? He basically said, hey, you guys, go fight the evil. And they were like, okay. And neither they nor he at all were like, hey, can you give us those, like, things that allow us to use our powers? He apparently just didn't think that was important before sending off our heroes to go fight in the big bad's, like, main palace. So again, I'm very confused. I don't know why. This feels like it's out of order. This should be a thing that he, like, did to begin with. Or maybe kept with them while they were sealed away. Did he intend to give them to someone else at some point? Because if that was the case, why did you seal them away? It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But anyway, they do the whole transformation thing, and they almost ruin it. Okay? So they do the whole, like, shot that Sentai loves, where they do the looking up shot while somebody, like, somersaults over them 5 times. And then they do the pose, and that's great. But when they introduce themselves, it cuts to the puppets that we saw in the intro. So, again, if you remember way back when I talked about there was these weird, awful-looking puppets in the intro sequence, they cut to those. Like, they're like, oh, I'm Red Ranger. And then they cut to the stupid-looking Tyrannosaurus puppet, like, in a circle wipe. And it's just not good. Like, that part's not good. What is good is that all the poses look great. Because they all look sort of like martial arts poses. And that's good. Okay, I like that. I like that we haven't left the realm where we're not doing kung fu. Okay, I still kind of like that. The suits obviously look great. The helmets obviously look great. This is a classic look. And you can tell why they like these suits. These suits look great, and they work. It's so simple. I don't entirely understand why they have a diamond pattern, but that's okay. The rest of it is just kind of like, I don't know. Like, I love the team pose. I do. It looks good. The only thing I say that they probably should have done here is to have the explosions behind them, because when you do the team pose, you should have, like, the colored explosion. I think that's something they add later, but I don't know. That's something I would have liked to see here, and that's really my only complaint about this part. So at this point, we get our fight scene where they're all in their suits and doing choreographed martial arts, and they all kind of look the same, but one thing that I think is really interesting, at least about this series, is that they don't get their weapons right away. So the weapons in Power Rangers didn't really, like, come into play. In this series, they're super important. So when they're not morphed, they have their weapons, but when they get into their suits, they no longer have, like, their special, unique weapons, except they have their guns. Okay, so they're all fighting, and then the yellow guy jumps on a rooftop and pulls out his gun and just shoots 3 of the bad guys in the face. One thing that I think is kind of interesting is that the Red Ranger and Gryffindor / not Goldar start fighting, like continuing their fight from when he wasn't in the suit. But whereas he was, like, fighting one-on-one evenly when he wasn't in the suit, as soon as he gets in the suit, he just gets his ass kicked. Like, he just can't land a hit, and he just gets, like, whacked in the face with a sword, like, 4 times. Like, apparently, putting the suit on has made him much weaker. Somehow. We also almost ruin it because they keep cutting back to the stupid children and the trap, and I'm like, stop cutting back every 30 seconds. There are so many cuts. Okay, it's like a modern YouTube video. There's just, like, cuts every 3 seconds. But then I'm, like, wrong slightly, because the Red Ranger pulls out a different sword. So apparently the reason why he was losing, although it wasn't very clear from the fights there, like, the fight scenes they were showing, was that apparently he just decided to fight this sword wielder without a sword. Because then he draws a sword. I don't know where his other sword went that he was fighting with before, that I thought was in his hand, but apparently isn't. And now he's fighting, like, evenly, except by evenly, I mean he's just striking the gold guy at the same time that he is being struck. So they're just sort of like battle of attrition, which either means that he's an idiot and he's still gotten weaker because before he took no hits, or like he thinks that this is the best way to like move forward. I don't, like, is he a masochist? I don't understand. But of course, because he's the Red Ranger, he tells everybody else, you all go ahead and save the children. I'm going to fight this guy one-on-one. Cut to Blue running inside the evil palace. And Blue is like, okay, I can't jump up there, so I'm going to, like, throw you up there, and you go get the shuttle. And of course, at the very last second, Pink grabs the shuttle as the metal ball falls and breaks the table. And she's, like, running around with the space shuttle in her arms, and it's really stupid looking, but it's kind of hilarious. Like, just look at this. It looks so stupid, and yet it's kind of quaint. It's kind of wonderful at the same time. I don't know. It's just, I don't know. It's just one of those things where I'm like, did they do this because they had a model of a space shuttle lying around, or did they like plan this out and build the model of the space shuttle? I really want to know. Anyway, then a giant bird hand punches through the wall and picks up the tiny shuttle, and we get this shot. Suddenly, out of nowhere, we now have a giant Greek hoplite who has now kidnapped the tiny shuttle. And while it's a wonderful use of green screen, I just want to point out, this was never mentioned. This is the first time we've seen this monster, basically. We then outside, where we are given a name for this thing called Dorn. That's apparently its name. And it has a sword, because of course it does. And it looks loosely like it's a cross between like a knight's armor and like a Greek hoplite. Like it's wearing this sort of like cuirass thing, like this breastplate. And I think it's supposed to look kind of like Alexander the Great or something. But it just comes out of nowhere. Suddenly, our other heroes arrive, and they have to be that the giant like monster has gotten the shuttle. Now, I want to point out that they were outside, so apparently this giant hoplite, who again is bigger than the skyscrapers, snuck up on them. It just appeared out of nowhere and punched through the wall, and they did not become aware of it until they were told that it existed, which means either they can't see out of those helmets very well, they have no peripheral vision, or the monster just did not register for them at all. Here, I'll give you a shot like from the outside to give you a sense of scale of how big the monster is, and what I want you to notice is that the shuttle has now changed size again, because you'll remember that the shuttle was tiny, but you may notice that the shuttle is now a model again, but the model hasn't changed size. It's just now bigger because the person holding it is now bigger. Because I don't know. I don't know if this is an error or if this was intentional, or if they just didn't have a smaller like shuttle. But as you can see, this giant Greek hoplite wearing strangely, it almost looks like samurai armor with the two fins on the sides next to his legs. Like, this giant has appeared out of nowhere. I don't know how it snuck up on them, but there it is. Oh, and then it disappears. It fades away and disappears, as does Bandora's castle. So all of this, shoving all the buildings together and putting her castle on top of a skyscraper, they just fade away in a fading shot so that they don't exist. And so, episode 1 ends with the villains triumphant, our heroes shaking their fists angrily, and the kids no closer to being saved. Okay? That's episode 1. Alright? That's just the introduction to the nonsense that this series throws at you. There are 9 more episodes of this series. Okay? 49. That is a lot of episodes for nonsense like this. We should also point out that they have over a minute of credits at the end, which involve our heroes giving balloons to children. And the ending credits, extremely lighthearted for what we've seen. They're almost comical because it shows all of our heroes doing modern things. It shows one of them in a tux driving a sports car, and then he sees an English bulldog with a hat on it, and it's we see the Black Ranger riding a mammoth, and then he falls off a bike, and it's just it's all over the place. And of course, because Series is kind of sexist, we see the Pink Ranger, and she's in a wedding gown as all of the other boys pretend to be interested in her. Because it's 1992, and that's about as far as we've gotten with gender politics, I guess, in Japan. But yeah, that's the first episode of Zyuranger. What do you even say? How do you sum this up? How do you... I have seen this episode multiple times. I have seen, I had to watch it once the first time. I had to watch it again to take notes. I had to watch it again to get screen caps to show you things. And I feel like if I sat down and just tried to explain this to somebody normally, they would think that I had lost my mind. Which means that I really want to know what the writing room was like for this. I want to know, I wish I could, take a time machine and be a fly on the wall while they presented their ideas for scripting this. Because it's an acid trip. It is just 20 minutes of nonsense. Okay, it's 20 minutes of barely put together nonsense. And it's kind of glorious. It's really sad that it's also really stupid. I'm finding amusement in it, poking fun at it. I absolutely hated sitting through this trying to make sense of it, as a series. When I was just I'm just gonna watch this like it's a normal series, I was miserable watching it. But poking fun at it's a lot of fun just because it's so weird. There's so much weirdness every 5 seconds. It's like watching a car wreck. It's just... It boggles the mind. And I had to talk about it. I just had to talk about it. So I don't know if I'm going to do the other episodes. Maybe if people really like this and really like this format of doing screen caps and showing you things to try to give you context for this nonsense, I might do other episodes. I don't know. But I will say that this at least was kind of fun. So hopefully you all enjoyed this and enjoyed listening to me. So, see you all later with whatever else I do.